Hi, I'm George Howard, and welcome back. I'm sitting again with Marley Lovell, who's a student at Loyola University in New Orleans, as well as an entrepreneur. Last time we talked about some general kind of concepts with regards to Marley's business idea. We talked about the problem that he's trying to solve, his solution. We got into a little bit about the business model, talked about his market, and just generally got an overview of it. Today we're going to go into a little bit more depth about that business model and just continue our conversation.
Absolutely.
So Marley, what's been going on since the last time we talked?
Oh well, I mean, it was recently, but since the last time we talked, I'm always kind of trying to hash out new ideas and trying to develop it in a way that kind of makes sense. I think that, as a music industry studies major, we're constantly talking about how the music market is changing. And I kind of had some questions for you, and kind of wanted to kind of hash it out and try to see if we can come up with at least some kind of direction for it.
Direction is good.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, right now we're dealing with iTunes, which is just dominating the selling of music.
Selling of digital music for sure.
Well, the selling of digital music, but don't you think that they're dominating the selling of music overall?
Depends on the genre.
True.
The number one record this week is Reba McEntire's record, sold 500,000 copies. And it's only about 5% of those were digital downloads.
Mm-hmm.
In the country genre, digital downloads are just a blip.
Right.
In independent rock, it's 20%, sometimes as high as 30% of all sales, so it's and growing.
Mm-hmm. It
depends on the genre, but your point's well made. I mean, certainly
right.
the writing is on the wall. I think that the death of the CD is premature.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly ailing. And iTunes has come in and filled the power vacuum that has been left by the malfeasances of the record retailers.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you're, what?
Yeah, I mean, I think that iTunes is just to say that they're dominating at least the digital music marketplace, and I think that that's kind of everybody sees that that's where the future of selling music is, But we also see that the steady incline is kind of leveling off, and for me, I see that as the reason for that being DRM,
Sure.
And now that we're seeing the emergence of the Zune Music Store, or what was it called, the Microsoft
Zune Marketplace,
Zune Marketplace, and Amazon MP3, which are selling DRM-free stuff. I mean, that's really going to it's putting us in a different direction.
It's a big move. This week we saw two big moves towards a anti-DRM. DRM is digital rights management. It's a kind of digital watermark that labels place onto their digital downloads, which limit what the user can do with it. And it limits from a variety of ways, being only able to burn a number of CDs and or transfer them to a number of devices. And there have been a lot of moves away from this, and now Amazon MP3 comes out and says no DRM. It turns out there's some watermarking going on, but no DRM. And then yes, as
just so they can kind of track where it is.
It's hard to know.
Huh,
but as announced recently, the Zune, which is kind of Microsoft's answer to iPod, they have their own marketplace, and they are suggesting that they're going to put DRM-free music up there. It's important. It's important to allow people to I guess share music. I mean, I guess that's the philosophy behind why is DRM such an issue. Which on a day when
it's not necessarily so that they can share music. It's more that they kind of feel trusted again. I think that there's been a lack of trust on the from the consumer's standpoint. Like what I mean.
Probably
like
valid.
They haven't been right.
It's probably a valid lack of trust. I mean,
I mean, don't you? It seems like kind of like a cycle to me, though. You know what I mean? Like. I mean, if you see an artist's reaction to it, and they're still making, a substantial amount of money, and they're not hurting, not to say. I think that it's totally valid. I'm not a proponent of taking music, because I think that it's an art form, and I think it needs to be paid for and respected in that way.
I think your point's well made. I mean, I think that one of the things that's proving that point is Radiohead's recent kind of experiment of allowing the customer to name their own price. As soon as you pay the 90-cent transaction fee, whatever you want to pledge for this album, from 91 cents on up to $100.
And I think people take it as like a moral thing. They feel like here's my opportunity to show how much respect I have for this band. I think it works for that for that type of situation. I mean, on a long term, I don't know if it's.
Well, there are 2 points with the Radiohead experiment. The first one is, according to the Radiohead camp, the vast majority of people who are pre-ordering this record, which comes out on Tuesday, is people are paying what they call regular retail price, which could be $10, $12, whatever. The other interesting thing, which I don't think has gotten out there too widely yet, is Radiohead has said, you know what, we're going to sign to a label. So, while earlier this week
they're going to sign to a label now before they're right.
And they've just said, look, we can't. Basically, they've said we can't do it ourselves.
God, they could though, don't you think?
They can't
they
do
tried.
it to the degree that they want. No, I don't think they've ever. I mean, I'm sure they've thought about doing it themselves.
I mean, they almost did it. I mean, they got a week. They're going to get a week before their latest release. They're not going to do it before this next release. Maybe after the next release, or
no, it's coming soon. I mean, I think it'll be they'll sell those kind of pre-orders and then they'll do a deal. Remains to be seen whether they'll do it with an indie, whether they'll do it with a major, and they'll certainly get very good terms. They said they're going to make the announcement in the next couple of days. But we went from this moment of the announcement of this is another nail in the coffin of major labels, and I wrote a piece about it on Artist House about how kind of, but maybe not, because in order for Radiohead to do what Radiohead did, they needed a major label to spend ridiculous amounts of money on them to get to this level. Right. And now it's somewhat been validated by the fact that Radiohead is saying, look, we just kind of can't do this to the degree that we want on our own. But we're seeing new methods. We're seeing new hybrids. I think another implication is, okay, so if Radiohead is allowing people to price the CD at where they want, it makes it very hard for labels to say, well, what are damages when somebody infringes? The first RIAA suit was adjudicated today, and the verdict came down against some poor single mother of two up in Minneapolis, and they charged her $9,000 per track in penalties for infringing, and she owes $220,000, right? So they had to come up with that $9,000 figure somewhere, and if you go and you say, well, Radiohead is saying that this record is what I want it to be worth, you could say, well, I want it to be worth a penny, so I'll give you your 4 cents or whatever. So it's a complicated landscape out there, but I feel that we're far afield from what you're probably here to talk about.
No, I mean, that's kind of exactly what we're talking about. I kind of wanted to just talk about, the history of selling, the future of selling music. I think that when we talk about the music industry today, everybody says that artists don't make their money on records; they make their money on the roads, and it seems like music.
Rolling Stones, a $500 million tour gross.
That seems pretty fair.
How many people bought the last Rolling Stone record? How many people remember the last Rolling Stone
How worried are they
record?
about people infringing on their copyright?
I think the Rolling Stones would just be delighted if people were listening to their music.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't, from Sticky Fingers or something, If they could get people to P2P, Sweet Neocon or something, I think they'd be very excited because, as you say, they make all their revenue off the road. They're the Rolling Stones,
Right.
People point these examples out there as if it's instructive in some way. Radiohead is not an instructive artist for, an emerging artist. The Rolling Stones is not a model that can be replicated.
Well, even for a band just starting out, I think from looking at a financial perspective, they're more likely if they play all their time, if they spend their time practicing and they go on the road and they come up with a good live performance, that they're going to have a better time trying to generate some sort of cash flow with those type of dates than recording an album and depending on selling X amount of copies. You know what I mean?
Could not agree more.
Right. Yeah. So in that, I think it seems like music is kind of making this kind of transition almost into to a promotional tool.
Well, the line is
for their live performance, because we talked about my idea last time, and it kind of incorporates all these things. It at its core, it's definitely selling music and trying to turn people on to new types of music, but in terms of the business model, I have to look at all these other things, whether it be merchandise and ticket sales and all these different ways to kind of generate money.
Yeah, as we talked about last time, music is increasingly becoming a non-scarce resource, like air.
Right.
If you got all of it that you want, you can't put a price on it. Of course, people point out the bottled water theory, but that's not a terribly good theory, because if you drink the tap water in certain cities, you
can
get
tell,
some sort of,
you can tell the difference.
some microbe.
They're doing a lot of construction around my house. It makes me kind of nervous.
You want to drink some of that water. So so your point's well made. So you try and build relationships based on an emotional connection, and then monetize those emotional connections. As crass as that sounds, as Gordon Gekko as that sounds, right? So in order to do that, so that you can make more music, right? That's why we want to monetize these things. You know, the more money we make, the more music we can make, and the less reliant we become on the market forces to dictate the type of music we want to make. Radiohead makes precisely the music they want to make. No one goes to radio and says, that's good, guys, but could you maybe write another chorus to that song? Radiohead says, what's a chorus, right? They don't care. This is what you want. This is where the market becomes important and gives you the freedom that you need. If you're making money so that you're not relying on some label to sell your music, you can make whatever you want, right? So how do we do that? And you've brought up the idea of the live show. That's absolutely where it has to start. You're right there with your customers. It gives you an excuse to connect with press, radio, retail, everyone around the little hub of the live show. You can't just make a record and call up some press person and say, hey, write about my CD. They don't care. And they're getting so many things. But if you play enough shows and you build, it is the way. But how that reflects in your model is maybe a trickier kind of question. I mean, do you
where
put shows on? How does that relate to you?
My idea was to try to have, I wanted to try to webcast some live shows because I think that's kind of where it is. I think that that's a good idea. I mean, people can that way people outside of the cities that they're performing in can actually tune in to their thing, right? Live webcast of a live performance. It's, now that we're seeing that people have
one of your ideas was ads, frankly.
Right.
Ad supported, and everyone's of two minds about it. Is ad supported music a good or a bad thing? It's only a bad thing if the ads that are tied to the music are repugnant to the listener.
Right.
If you're some reggae artist and they're advertising, I don't know, what's the most repugnant thing to a reggae artist? Pork, right? So the other white meat sponsors the next Yellow Man tour or something, right? That's probably not going to work, right? But if it's something that's not repugnant to a reggae artist.
I don't know, Red Stripe.
Okay, so Red Stripe sponsoring, whatever.
Right.
So it's about connecting those people with values that align, and you figure that out because you know it, you lived it, right? And you also see it when you do these live gigs. That's another real important reason why doing the live gigs becomes real relevant, because you get to see what these people really care about. But going back to your business model, there is value in being a filter. There really is. And fundamentally, I think that's what you're talking about, right? You become a
because there is so much content.
There's so much disparate content. The music business has been splintered into a million little pieces. The people that can pick up some percentage of those million little pieces and make sense out of them are going to do just fine, right? You've chosen, the bundle of sticks that is reggae, or reggae through hip hop, and that is a very valid niche, right? I mean, one of the beautiful things about globalization is that it allows for niches to flourish in a way where before your market was so self-contained, you couldn't ever. So you are a filter. How you monetize that comes from deep connections with your customers. There are things they are willing to pay for. If nothing else, Radiohead has proven that. They have proven that the deep connection that these people feel towards them, for whatever reason, we can all speculate what it is, but they have a connection, is monetizable. You can do the same thing,
right?
If you are a good enough filter. If you are good enough at people going, this is my trusted source for reggae. Because what that does is it gets both your internal and your external customers to come together. So your internal customers are these artists who are looking desperately for a way to connect with the external customers, who is random dude on the street who likes reggae.
An interesting sidebar to that. An idea that I had was to kind of promote reggae, promote artists through other artists, in the sense that this artist listen to who your artist listen to. I mean, because the fans are so obsessed with where did you get your inspiration from? What are you listening to now? What record did you buy? You know what I mean? Trying to get that type of stuff.
I mean, when I was doing A&R on a regular basis, thank God I'm not anymore. One of the first questions.
How long did you have a job?
Huh?
How long did you have an A&R job?
All my waking life. You know, I don't know, since I was like 16 years old. So one of the first questions I would ask an artist was, who are you listening to? Because I like their music.
Right. Yeah.
So,
right. Absolutely.
And then you saw this, done very, very well with Hear Music, which was eventually bought by Starbucks. They did the artist choice thing. So they'd have Lucinda Williams or Elvis Costello or whatever make a mixtape.
Yeah.
This thing sold like hotcakes.
Yeah.
Rolling Stones did one. It sold more than the Rolling Stones record. So, and Amazon tries to do this with their preference engines and all that. The problem with the preference engines is it lacks the human quality, right? So you get weirdo stuff that doesn't quite match. But again, I go back to this idea of the filter. When you combine the algorithms, the technology that you can create to do this with a human filter, that's where you have power, right? Absolutely. That's where you become the trusted source. Again, how do you monetize it? But I think, why not steal the Starbucks model? Why not go to some of these reggae artists and say, what are you listening to? Let's build a mixtape, CD, whatever, and sell it right off the site.
Speaking of that, because how it kind of started is that I'm into internet radio, and so and I started as an internet DJ just because I'm a huge fan of music.
You have your own station?
I've been chosen as the manager for the Loyola station that's going to be getting up in the next couple of weeks. So we're just working on trying to get
all reggae all the time at Loyola.
No, not. I mean, we're trying to break out. It's going to be called Crescent City Radio.
Okay.
Yeah. So. To get back to that, my idea was to kind of hopefully
CCR.
CCR.
It's a Creedence Clearwater Revival. John Fogerty's going to send you a cease and desist so fast.
Well, if it wasn't.
Go ahead.
Wait, no, now I'm all flustered. The idea was to have playlists that fans can go on there and have playlists. Ideally, artists could do the same thing.
Love it.
What kind of things what kind of performance royalties problems am I going to run into?
Oh, nobody knows. This is the problem. Well, I don't mean to be glib about it. That is the whole problem. Until we get transparency, until we get a set of laws that people can understand, then the business can't move forward. Someone explain to me the DMCA sometime. Right? Sit down and explain to me the DMCA.
Yeah,
it is the most opaque document, right? And the webcasting stuff with sound exchange.
You can't play as an internet DJ. You can't play the same song. The same artist in the same hour from the same album or something like that.
In theory, I don't know what the sound exchange, which is an adjunct of the RIAA, which has come in and tried to become the ASCAP or BMI for webcasters, right? Among other things, they're also trying to get royalties for the performers and do a bunch of other things. They have hung a sword of Damocles over the webcasters, right? They have said, at some point, we won't tell you when, but at some point we're going to retroactively increase your rates and put you out of business, right? Yeah. So, a couple months ago, there was this very real concern from people like Pandora and Last.fm and all these other webcasters that had built businesses on the idea that, look, we got to pay. We're broadcasters. We got to pay a rate, and we'll pay whatever we think we're supposed to pay because nobody can clearly articulate it. And they're doing their business. They're building communities, and it's a good thing. Innovation is occurring, and everything else.
People are hearing music and getting turned on to new stuff.
Right, and the RIAA is a lobbying group for the major labels, right? So I'm not going to editorialize, but the reality is that. You will have some issues that you will have to pay. They are surmountable issues.
Right.
Okay. So you need to focus more on building your audience, figuring out why in a spectrum, which is now infinite, right? The radio spectrum, because of webcasting, is basically infinite. There's no longer, again, we get back to lack of scarcity. There is no scarcity in terms of radio stations anymore.
Are those the same type of issues that I'm going to look into when trying to come up? Because I thought of this music, the music locker that's kind of been tried out, and seems like
don't say locker.
No, right? No, well, I know. Companies. Well, that's the reason why I use that word is because that's that people understand that as something that.
Yes, but it is deeply stained. Right? The locker theory, was very much a big part of the.
I'm just trying to. Well, I mean, and basically what it is, to give some validity to the locker idea is just trying to have, not necessarily even your music online, but more music that if you were to buy a track on hiphopreggae.com, you'd be able to have access to that, even if it's just a streaming access to it. You know what I mean? If you assuming that you were on from a remote place that not your hard drive that you downloaded.
Yeah, that's what Lala's trying to do. There's a company called Loyola.com where you can upload your contents of your hard drive, your iPod, whatever, and then when you're away from your hard drive or your iPod, you have your songs up in the sky.
There's some issues with it.
They got a lot of funding. Warner is behind them, right?
Ooh, that's good. That's good news.
I don't know. I frankly think it's bad news. But it's a model. It's a model. It's tricky to monetize that model. It's also massive technological issues. I've been to Lala, and you walk in, and it is it's
a huge server.
Well, basically, except for the servers are dudes coding, right? I mean, it's just a floor full of dudes, mostly dudes, coding, right? Because that type of stuff, and this is such a problem with entrepreneurs, is that the internet has made it seem like you can do anything on the internet, right? And I guess you kind of can if you have the resources to hire the best coders, right? So we're just not there yet, where if you want to create, hesitant to use the word lockers, let's use cubbies.
Yeah.
If you want to have a cubby in the sky that
great.
holds all of your music, right? That's going to take some coding. That's not something you're going to bang together, in a week. And I know you've got a brother that maybe he could do it, right?
Well,
you have this advantage.
Yeah.
It's still non-trivial.
Right. I'm just trying to come up with some innovative ideas.
Well, and I applaud that, and I don't mean to squelch that.
No, not at all. I mean, I know
I think that the innovative ideas should always lead, and no one should squelch that. Me nor anyone should say, that's a big technological thing. And if I have the power to squelch anyone's idea, then you're probably not meant to be an entrepreneur, because one of the things that entrepreneurs have to face over and over and over again is everyone going, I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're going to talk about. It's not going to work.
How many times do you think Jeff Bezos was told, Jeff, why are you going to sell books online, right? Every entrepreneur who came up with these things had to face the horrible, thing of their friends and their family, the people that they loved and trusted, telling them that their idea was just wackadoo, right? So you got to thicken your skin. It doesn't mean you shouldn't listen to people, shouldn't ask the questions, but if you've got an idea to make the locker thing work, Godspeed, But the whole reason we do the program here, the whole reason that there is a science behind entrepreneurship, is to try and build a foundation of knowledge to increase your odds. That's all it's about, right? That's all strategy is about, and everything else. Because you can fall ass backwards into success in entrepreneurship. People do it all the time. Crocs. Right? Not even just Crocs.
Are they really made out of cornstarch?
I don't know. In my house there are like 35 pairs, right? Everyone has 35 pairs of Crocs at their house. The little things, the doodads that cost like $7 to put into the holes in Crocs. Some mom and daughter came up with that. They had no entrepreneurial experience. They fell ass backwards into it. Those are the exceptions that get, and I think they're good exceptions, because they get people to go, I want some of that. I want to be that person. I don't have any experience, I don't have any skills, but I'm going to try. The problem is that most of those people fail. And so programs, fields of study, Kawasaki's book, disciplines, whatever, all they do is try and increase your odds, if only marginally. If your odds increase by 1%, you're 1% better than all of it. And it is such a slim margin between success and failure. So it's not about being dismissed by someone's idea. It's more about listening and going, can I come up with a strategy? And you can. You've got the knowledge base, right? You're asking the right questions. What concerns me a little bit about this conversation is it seems like you're second guessing certain things.
No. I mean, these are just ideas that are they're in their preliminary stages. So it's important for me to bounce them off of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You need to bounce it.
And it's like, I don't get discouraged. So don't think that I'm going to get discouraged. That's not. I'm way far from that.
Okay.
I'm about to graduate. So it's like I can't. I'm not. I don't look at it as a student project anymore.
No. Entrepreneurs have to be optimists.
Yeah.
You can't be a pessimistic entrepreneur.
I don't think.
Those two don't align, right?
Absolutely.
You have to believe that you can change the world. You have to believe that your idea is going to work, right? You have to confront, as Jim Collins says, you have to confront the brutal truth. You have to say, look, here's the reality. This is hard, right? And here are all the reasons it's hard.
That's why it's fun, though.
But I believe I can do it, in spite of all that, right? So that's the perseverance. So for me to say that the locker idea or whatever is going to be hard to build a server farm, your response should be, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard.
That's why no one's done it, and that's why it's
easy. Everyone would be building cubbies in the sky, right? Making $1 million. So what else you got?
Well, I mean, now that we have people, everybody's going to tell you no. How do you if I was to come to you as a record label executive, and I'm like, you're Dame Dash, and I want Sizzler, and I want all Sizzler's content.
Right.
Okay, and I'm like, Dame Dash, here's my record, here's my business plan.
Yes.
What is it going to take for you to be like, I want to give you my content, let's do this?
Well, first I would tell you that I have to change into my all-white suit and get my crystal.
And I'd be like, okay, we can work, we can do that.
Give me a minute. All right, so you've got your private placement memorandum that you're ready to hand to me, and you're asking what would some record label executive, what's your question to them?
Well, my question to them is trying to get their content, because now I built my site.
Okay, so
I have my
it's
blog.
Very easy answer to that question. How are you going to? What are you going to do for me?
And I have private investors to market this. I have a marketing plan. I would like to even use your artist to maybe have a promotional tour to start this off. And I would really I want to bring you to your customers.
Okay. So it's all about specifics. I mean, all that sounds good in the abstract.
No, absolutely.
Good, but these guys get pitched all the time, and I think, from a more general idea, you're talking about going to a strategic partner, which is good. I mean, that's smart, rather than just going to some venture capitalist necessarily, who all they're looking for is a return on investment. All they want to say is, okay, I don't need to understand your business plan. I want to understand you. I want to understand that you can make things happen and that you're going to fill a need. Just as we talked about last time, you've identified a problem, you have a solution to that problem, and I want to know what my ROI is, what my return on investment is. Going to someone that's in the business, it's shortcuts. You don't have to explain the problem. They should know what the problem is. All they're going to be interested in is your solution. So,
really the question is like, would you expect some sort of cash
Well, I don't want
advance?
this. I can tell you that. Okay.
Right.
I don't want.
Well, it wouldn't hurt though. If you're
yes, it
saying
would.
that. Well,
I'm not going to read this.
Well, it doesn't necessarily even mean that you have to read this. This is something that I did. This is a different business plan for a different project. But
okay, you're not.
But just in the sense that you see that I've thought this through to the point.
You need to express your idea in 10 words, right?
Absolutely. No question.
And then you need to have 10 pieces of paper or a PowerPoint deck or whatever that tells me what the problem is, what the solution is, what your business model is, what your kind of, as Kawasaki says, your underlying magic, what is it that you do slightly different, what your key metrics are, and what your expectations are. And it should be done bam, 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 right? And then you hook me in. So I'm Damon Dash. You've given me that in whatever form, verbally, in a PowerPoint deck, whatever.
Right.
Then I say, hey, this is pretty cool, Marley. Let's sit down and talk. Then you say, can I shoot you over my business plan? And then this comes. You don't start with this.
All right.
This is terrifying. Right? So you can't start with this, but it's good that you have that, because without this,
I wouldn't be able to come up with my 10 words.
You wouldn't have been able to come up with the 10 words.
Not
and that's it. The 10 words is not a shortcut, okay? The 10 words is not easy. The 10 words only comes from this, telephone-sized book, right? And God bless you for doing this, right? And doing this is so instructive because it makes you flesh it out. Then you can get to the 10 words. You can't do it any other way. So it's wonderful to see, traditionally, historically, whatever, this is not, you can't send this around.
No,
they just, it's like, it's the equivalent of sending an A&R person a double album worth of material and saying, check this out sometime. You send them 3 songs and hope those 3 songs hook them, and then that gives
those 3 songs.
Make sure they hook them, and then that gets the conversation going. Right. I feel I haven't answered your Damien Dash question, but the answer is really
that's exactly what I have to deal with.
What are you going? You got to get in front of whoever it is and very quickly show them that you're going to solve a problem that they have.
Right.
And be able to say it and articulate it really clearly. And I think we've made some headway today talking about it. I think we've got a ways to go. I think you're in a process now where you've identified the problem, you've got a solution, you're wrestling with your business model. That's the right wrestle.
And especially now that everybody's wrestling with it. No one seemed to really find the spot. And so
Absolutely
I'm just trying to
But you got a lot that a lot of people don't have, right? You understand that you got to wrestle with this. You understand that there has to be a strategy. You understand that you got to connect with the market, and that's really where you're coming. I think if we've fleshed anything out, we have fleshed out the fact that being a filter, being something that provides a trusted source for people, is a revenue driver, and I think in future conversations we need to specify that. But again, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I'm George Howard, Marley Lovell. We'll see you next time.